like to sincerely apologize to the Sangha for my tardiness. It's unavoidable. Fortunately, an old friend was in crisis and I was making arrangements to visit her later. My apologies to you. Acha, we shall continue. These great considerations that have been the subject of the past satsangs, in fact, has always been the subject of every satsang. And I want you to take a moment, if you will, and consider what is the most fundamental problem that confronts us as human beings. I want you to pause for a moment and consider, look into your life, find for me the most fundamental problem. We must find the most fundamental problem, you see, so that we can live on purpose. So for a moment, reflect. You are confronted in your life. What is your real problem? You must find the real problem. Done, Satrani? We'll give the rest a few minutes to catch up. And please now volunteer, if you will, if you feel comfortable in volunteering. What did you consider in this past few minutes to be the most fundamental problem that confronts you? Satrani, you go first.
Today I had an insight into my personal journey. And it's related to a word that you used recently. And I had looked at the word, but I didn't really place it in context in terms of its meaning and what impact it was having within my journey, within my work.
Quickly.
Sorry. Okay. The word is inertia.
Inertia. Inertia. The most fundamental problem, as you see it, is inertia. This tendency to remain stuck. This unwillingness to move, to be changed. Very nice. Someone else? Acha, James Saab?
Yes, sir. With me, I don't have faith in anything. So it's very hard for me to get rooted in anything because even though I feel like I'm always looking for truth, I just don't believe in it.
Acha, your biggest problem is lack of faith. Acha, someone else? Just like you have.
Bhagwan, and I wish it would be something different, but mine is definitely attachment.
Acha, attachment. This
Yes.
tendency to come.
And even when I think that I have conquered it, something, a circumstance will occur. My daughter was threatened the other day,
Acha.
and I realized that all spiritual teachings just kind of,
Reverted.
I
Okay,
could seriously done so much.
Acha. Acha, Naeem Saab?
For me, it's just seeking satisfaction in love. And really can't find it. When I think I have it, it's gone.
Acha. Acha.
It's disappeared again.
Acha. It is the search for love.
Certain.
Problematic. Acha. Acha. Parataji?
Mine is want to control.
biggest problem then is trying to stay in control of it.
Yes.
Acha. Purpose being to avoid bad things from happening and being able to make good things happen. This means control. Acha. Someone else. Acha, good about something.
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Your biggest problem is ignorance.
Because it breeds everything else. If you don't know, you can't do, you can't be, and you just ignorant.
Ignorance. Yes, tell about you.
It has to do with idealism. I always in quest of having an ideal circumstance, situation. I feel really is right, my dream. And I do it, try to achieve the ideal, I consider ideal.
The search for perfection.
Yeah.
In terms of conditions, circumstances,
Right.
and ideology. What has been and is still the most fundamental problem that confronts you as a human being? Acha, we'll have Janamaji, then Barbara, and then Mr. Brother. What is your name, brother?
Sure.
Torek, welcome. You will be in that order. Acha, Janamaji.
Yeah, I think for me, it has to be not loving self completely, wholly. The more and more we learn about self, the more and more insights emerge. We learn that everything that rises, you have to just love it. The good, the bad, the ugly, and thereby loving yourself totally, unconditionally, you can extend that to others.
To come into a deep acceptance Acha, of yourself and
Yeah.
everything else.
Exactly.
And love it.
And see that others are the reflection of self,
Acha.
and love them in return, despite.
To overcome this ego
Yeah.
and this tendency to see yourself as separate
Yeah.
and all others as separate
Mhm.
individuals.
Yeah.
Acha, this is very good. Barbara,
John Margie just said exactly
she's something.
what for me is loving myself, accepting my shortcomings, my faults, and my imperfections.
Problem of love. Acha. Brother Troy,
That's the same thing. It's the opportunity with self-love, God's love for me, everything else.
anybody else have something to say on this issue? The biggest problem, the most fundamental problem that confronts us as human beings. Acha, Samadhi, then Sadaji, and Brother Ray. Was there anyone else I missed? And Sadasi and Teresa? And your name, sister? Dolores, and then Mensa. Now, hope you can remember the order. Begin.
For me, it's just
Acha, discipline, self-discipline, or
discipline and thinking that everybody else is disciplined also.
Acha. So to be disciplined and to cause all others to become disciplined. Of course, according to Samadhi idea. Is that right?
Yeah.
Acha. Someone else? Sadaji?
Knowing thyself.
Acha. Knowing thyself. The biggest problem that we are confronted with in life, according to Sadaji, is the problem of not knowing thyself and to attain that knowing. Acha. Next. Brother Ray.
Yes, I guess I would piggyback on Sadaji. Mine would be the question as to who I am, and associated with that is the preponderance if there is an existence where I might be where one might be totally at peace, free of all worry, all needs, all concerns, free to love, no conditions.
To attain self-knowledge and the freedom that comes with it, so that one becomes liberated from all of the limitations that are associated with the state of not knowing who you are. Acha, who was next? So quickly? Sadasi, you were next?
Yes, mine primarily is people pleasing. I still see in certain senses the value of others' opinions, but I'm tied into what everyone has said, and what I gather is that all of these are have been used as continuous strategies, unsuccessful strategies to make me content, happy,
Console yourself.
to console.
So the politics of relationship, is a big problem. How to be in them in such a way to come out of that relationship so without abandoning your own principle, displeasing, discompromising, just bargaining. What exactly do you mean?
No, not necessarily. It's based on the experiences that life has presented, that I've created. And I still think that when I look back at the opinions that created certain positions I'm in as the president, there were a lot of them based on the, I guess, my earlier stage systems that I had to adhere to, like parents, school, and whatnot. And when I found that I was going to get caught up in them, because I used every strategy I could to rebel, I wasn't prepared to be put into being unable to handle myself. So when, for instance, if I try to say something inside a song, I want to make sure that I've done it right, you know. And if it's, and somehow to me, I'm thinking that it's, this ego says that it should, and it sounds stupid. So I continuously go on thinking of, now what am I going to say next to let the guru know that I am in tune with what I'm saying. So this can be a continuous thing.
You're occupied with public opinion.
Okay.
And to appear just so proper.
Yeah.
Incorrect. And
Okay.
yes, someone else was next. Yes, sister?
I guess the lack of trust.
Lack of trust, your problem, the biggest problem.
Probably really trusting in people to handle given situations that will affect me.
Teresa, something to say?
I guess mine would be lack of self-discipline on the path, and then building Dharma in this hemisphere.
In this condition, in this culture, big problems. Mensa, what is the problem? Your biggest problem you're confronting in life?
Well, I've got several.
Several?
One of them is trying to prioritize my time and putting things in the right perspective, and just basically trying to manage my time in the right and all the way.
Anyone else has anything to say? Acha, Dhamamati.
Like this, I have a couple, but I would say the two major ones are control and self-discipline. A lack of
The
self-discipline.
lack of self.
Yes,
They're very much connected.
yes.
Anyone else that I haven't heard from? Yes, sister? What is your name, sister? Deborah? I would like to take... Barikara, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I think my most fundamental problem is lack of inertia. Is inertia.
Is inertia?
Inertia and lack of self-discipline.
And the lack of self. So you see then that we all have all kinds of problems going on. Cetera, something to say? You're thinking quite a bit back there, looking, critiquing. What did you have to add to the matter? Huh?
My biggest problem is existence.
Existence? In what way?
Why God is playing the game through me. Why He's playing the game through God, whatever it is. Existence and confusion as to what existence has in store in terms of the purpose of life, the meaning of life. So I'm confused in terms of my very existence.
Very good. Anita, anything you'd like to add? We're considering your most the biggest problem that confronts us as human beings?
Doing what I'm supposed to do. I guess it all boils down to discipline.
Discipline.
Yeah.
I tell you, see, all of what you have said is true, naturally. But all of that is rooted in something even more fundamental. Right? I tell you. Emma, last but not least.
I would say fear.
Fear?
Is one of my problems.
Mhm.
And a lot of the other problems I was listening to, they stem out of fear.
Fear.
You know, want control, the lack of discipline. And I would say fear is mine because I know that I'm going to change. And that change is not familiar and unknown to me.
Mhm.
And I'm not steady in my faith that it will be over.
Just one per person. Now your wheels are turning. Good. Let us therefore consider this today together. And then when we have departed and gone our separate ways, I would like for you to truly consider what is going to be discussed today. Because we must get down to the business. You must clearly see what the problem is before you can find any solution. In fact, the solution lies in the problem. Always. So you must therefore truly investigate your problem. Radically and look into it. You see? Don't be superficial. And don't be sympathetic to it. But you must truly, truly enter into its depth and meaning. Now, the mystics have said the most fundamental problem that confronts you in life as a human being is death. Please make a note of this. Please understand this argument today. The most fundamental problem in life is that it ends and that you will die. And that everyone and everything and every circumstance and every condition that you are involved in also is subject to this same faith that is death, the ending. This is the biggest problem in life, you see. Death makes life pointless. And the problem becomes how to resolve this pointlessness. Is that right, sister? And yes, you try all kinds of ways and means to cope with the fundamental pointlessness of life. What is the point of all your strategies? Have you considered it? Now, what is the point? Everything that you are doing, everything that you are involved in this bardo of wakefulness, and the lesser bardos of dreaming, every activity that you are involved in is subject to this change. Is that not right? The problem with life is that nothing is stable. Everything is changing. Everything is in flux. Everything is in movement from one polarity to the next polarity. Estamos simultaneos. That is the biggest problem, that there is nothing permanent. It is all Maya. It is simply giving you the illusion of permanency and stability. But it is not eternal in any sense of the word. It is constantly in this state of flux, change. Everything is simply arising. It is simply appearing in the domain of your awareness, durating for a while, and then ultimately it simply disappears into the phenomena in the condition that is death. Everything that you're involved in is a part of this endless cycle of changing, arising, being, disappearing. What Bhagwan has called click, clack, click, clack. Here, gone. Here, gone. Here today, gone tomorrow. The whole sound of your experience is that of click, clack. And you are involved to the point of fascination and trying to find some way to stop the click, the clack. And there's no way to do it. So you are confronted with the meaninglessness and pointlessness of it all. And you must consider this. Until you consider this, you will simply live at the level of click-clack. You will never live at the level of depth. Spirituality is living life at a certain depth. Your problem is that you do not live at the depth of your being. You are functioning solely and exclusively at the surface, involved in the click-clack of things, trying to pleasurize it, trying to make consolation out of it, avoiding the reality that is death in the ending of all of this stuff. Therefore, you must enter into a great consideration about this problem of death. How you live, in fact, at any time is simply a reflection of your resolution of this problem of death. And if you have not resolved it at all, then you are simply living a meaningless existence. Totally involved in strategies to pleasurize it, to make consolation, to avoid the inevitable. You're living deludedly. Maya. The Buddha says that of footprints, the greatest is that of the elephant. And of considerations, the greatest one is the consideration of death and the problem that it introduces into your life. I want you to begin to see that every problem that we have heard around this room ultimately is linked. Now you're trying to find love in your relationship, but what is the point? What is the point? These relationships are bound to come to an end. What is the point? Yes, you can remain involved in it, and pleasurize it and create all kinds of philosophies to console yourself, but does that change the click-clack? Does that change the fact of death and dying and the ending of all of this? No. You can make all kinds of philosophies, but none of that truly interferes with or interrupts the reality of death, the ending of this thing called life for you. And it is not just a problem that confronts human beings, it confronts all beings. Period. Whether you're a tree or a squirrel or a mosquito or a plant, all life is confronted with the same problem. So don't take it personal. It is the most fundamental problem. And therefore you must truly consider it. Unless you consider it, you will not be able to break your fascination with all of your strategies that you have involved yourself in for purposes of pleasurizing and consoling yourself in the face of this appalling fact of life that it is. You will never attain any depth. You will never abandon these surface strategies and involve yourself in the real process that is God and self-realization. You will have your priorities all mixed up. And what are your priorities? Look at it. Really look at it now. Be honest with me. What are your priorities? Really, what are your priorities? You've spoken them to a large extent, haven't you? If as Taravataji has confessed, that his most fundamental problem is finding the ideal conditions and circumstances to live in, then his priority will be always to search for these circumstances and situations. That will be his search. Constantly looking for the right situation, right circumstances. You see? But what is the point? All of the situations and circumstances that you will find will be subject to this same law. That is death, ending, discipline. So what is the point? You will simply live your life preoccupied with that which is not that important. You are all completely, totally involved in things that are really not that important at all. You must see this and lose all of this sympathy that you have with all of these so-called important things that you are doing. It's not very important. Bhagwan, my family, my children, I'm doing my daddy thing. Whoa, that's so important that I must abandon this in-depth process that is God realization. I must let go of the discipline that is sadhana. Because this is more important than sadhana. Look at this madness. Now see this madness. That's not that important. You people have put so much importance on this stuff. Now you interrupt your meditation, your sadhana, your ceaseless simran to pour a glass of water, and you become so fascinated with the damn water, as if that's so important. Oh, let me stop my meditation so I can have a good glass of water. What is this? That's what you do. And until you break this illusion, until you truly overcome this presumption about what is important in life, then you will simply remain at the superficial level of life. You will never live at the depth. You will never enter into wisdom. You will never enter into the state that is enlightened. You will never find happiness. All of the activities that you are involved in, yes, they are essential for the functioning of life. We do not argue that. You are alive, so you have to do certain things. But none of the things that you are doing is sufficient for the experience of happiness. At all. You must truly enter into the depth of life. The very source from which all of this is arising. Because there lies the happiness. The discipline that is sadhana and meditation and the ceaseless practice of it is the process that keeps you rooted in the depth of life. In the discipline that is sadhana and the spiritual practice that is associated, we stand and we are continuously abiding in that which is the source of it all. We are not lost in the fascination of the surface phenomena going on. The understanding is there. This is Maya. That is why I have argued with you that the right view that is necessary for sadhana and spiritual practice and this wakeful bardo of life is that you must look upon all of this as Maya. You must actually see this. Seeing it. Do not cling to this. Do not become identified. See it. It is really not that important. Not that important. And even Bhakti Maji, if these children, sooner or later you have to understand these children are going to die. Now what can you do? Or you will die. In either case, there will be separation in the end. That is the truth. So you should be involved with all these things with that basic understanding. I am not saying don't be involved. How can you not be involved? You are a part of this drama. But you must be involved while standing in this position that is this realization. Are you following me? You must hold this asana imposter that is wisdom. Recognition of the reality that is death. The moment you lose the view of death, then you will fall into mind. The moment you give up this position that is this recognition, this continuous recognition, this permanent recognition of the reality of death, of impermanence. Unless, brothers and sisters, you can stand in this position, you cannot truly live effectively. Your life will have no depth at all. So you must really truly enter into a deep consideration. How you live depends on the outcome of such a consideration about death. It's reality. So today we can have dialogue on that. We can begin to examine it. Look at it. Yes, Jennifer?
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that all of the things that we're so preoccupied with really are not that important. And I think that most of us that are on the path now, that have heard some of your previous lectures, have glimpses of that. And we realize, oh, this is not that important. I recently bought a computer. And prior to having one by one, I said, oh, I need to have one, I need to have one. And now that I've got it, it's no big deal. It wasn't that important. I might even take it back. You know, but that's a material thing. But if you look at the intangibles, the emotional things that we daily swing through, I guess what you're saying is that the way to deal with it is just to have this detached attitude toward things, our emotions, our reactions, our dealings with people, and in doing that,
we come into right relationship with it all. You see, the problem is that we must come into right relationship with every event that is arising in our experience. The right relationship is the relationship that is based on the truth of the thing. Now the truth, as you are beginning to see, Janamaj, is that everything that you are in relationship with, including you, is temporary. Everything, all relationships, by definition, is temporary. By definition, including you. This is all temporary. Temporary in the sense that it is a part of that click-clack cycle. It comes into being, durates for a while, and simply disappears. Seeing that, become in right relationship with it. All right? I do not advocate fleeing, abandoning, renouncing, and all of that other nonsense. How to renounce? Where to go? You see? It is simply seeing this reality. It is an obvious truth. I am not now talking to you about something that is so profound and mysterious. This is obvious. Why can you not live your life considering that which is truly obvious? That everything is temporary. Everything is a part of the click-clack of phenomenon. Now this is so. So yes, you see, Janamaji, we enter into these relationships with that understanding. That understanding produces what is called detachment. Detachment is a state of wisdom. Detachment is not indifference at all. People have a wrong understanding of detachment. They think to be detached means to isolate yourself, to flee from situations and circumstances, to be indifferent, to not give a damn about nothing. No, this is a wrong understanding. Detachment is not like that. In fact, detachment is the condition that enables you to love. Interesting. If you do not attain this detachment, you really can't love at all. So this detachment then is simply the response to reality. Detachment is a precise, accurate, direct response to the nature of things, which is impermanent, temporary, changing, flux, arising, disappearing, reappearing, then disappearing again. Click, clack, click, clack. And not to become so fascinated with that. This is the proper relationship. To be able to abide and stand, Janamaji, in that realization, moment to moment. To always be cognizant of this in everything that you do.
Detached, but also knowing that death is around the corner, it could happen at any moment.
Any moment. Any moment death can happen to you or anything that you involve. Any moment. A friend of mine was going through crisis. I mentioned that I was talking with her. She had gone through a divorce after many years and was very, very much disturbed naturally by all of this. Her energy all was involved in finding a way to resolve the pain, etc. And while she was busy looking at all of that, involved in all of that, last night they called her son got murdered. Somebody shot him in the head, blew his brains out. Now she's just gone deeper. Asdamo sanentano. That's how it is. That's how it is. Attachment is fundamentally a state of ignorance. Attachment is that you cannot see that which is obvious. That is what is causing your detachment, your attachment. Your attachment is the inability to see that which is obvious. You are in wrong relationship. You have superimposed onto reality a condition that doesn't exist in reality, which is one of permanence and eternal nature. Doesn't exist. Yes, Dr.
A few months ago, we were in counseling together, and he said to me, we were talking about death. I said, well, I thought that I was ready for death, and I was taking care of myself. And over my life, I could see different times where I had been confronted with this, and Palau said that he was not, and that he thought that I should look at this, that, this phenomenon of death, and if I was truly ready. And what happened out of me looking at it was that I realized that if I was ready for death, why would I cling so much to just stuff like how somebody says something to me? If I was that prepared for death, why would I cling to my children? Why would I cling to a relationship with my husband?
Yes.
So what occurred out of that was this realization of attachment.
You discovered the condition that
And
you
most
were in.
certainly that I was not prepared to die as I thought I was. And so as I started working on this and becoming aware of things and uncovering things, again I thought that things were different and that I was prepared and I was preparing myself for this phenomenon of death. And but what has I found by me, the strategy that I use to say that I'm ready will occur when I'm a little emotional.
Yeah, I understand that. All right.
But what has occurred for me is that life has presented things for me to say, hey, you got to work a little harder, you got to go a little deeper, because you're not ready. So when I create these strategies for myself, I also create bigger circumstances so that I come up against life,
Yes.
and come up against my circumstances that show me that I got some work to do.
Yes. You see, and this is the whole thing that is beneficial from spiritual discipline and the consideration is that you become, over time, less and less capable of avoiding it. it almost starts hounding you. You see, once that Dharma comes into you, once you have heard the teachings, even when you start trying to put them out your mind, and most of you try to do that, you understand? You try to forget as much about these teachings as possible because they interfere with your involvement in click-clack. You see? You cannot get truly into your click-clack and simultaneously keep these teachings on your mind. So you push the teachings out of sight. You repress them so that you can plagiarize your click-clack and justify and rationalize. You see? But a point in time comes when you cannot repress it. Maharaj used to always say that once this seed that is known, this wisdom, is planted, it will grow. That's bound to grow. That you can take to the bank. It may take some a little longer, some a little sooner, but everybody that hears the Dharma, the teachings, that seed of knowledge is going to grow. And eventually, it will become so large that it begins to burst into the realm of your click-clack. And then you enter into tremendum. You see how to go on doing the meaningless becomes problematic now. You see? Because now you intuitively see this is meaningless. You know, it's not that important. It borders on trivia. And a lot of your energy and time is just wasted on trivia. Just trivia. Pure and simple. And eventually, this knowledge that that is all that you are doing begin to arise. And this become problematic now. There's a struggle, a natural struggle, a reluctance, you see, to adapt your life according to this truth that you have heard. And now is able to see without me pointing it out. As I sung, I point out a lot of stuff to you. But eventually you reach a point where you're seeing things without my having to point them out. You're just seeing them. How you relate to that sin is another matter. That's dependent upon your own spiritual evolution. But you begin to see. If you remain childish in relationship to this truth, this sin, then you will go on doing childish. You will see the truth and then you will run back to me, oh Bhagwan, you see. Dress me, diaper me, feed me, put my titty in your mouth. You want me to be mama for you. You see? Help me, help me, help me. I can't, you're so helpless like a little child. It is a childish relationship to the Dharma teaching. Some of you move into your adolescent mode. You see, then you're simply petulant, you're rebellious, you're arguing with me. You want to be equal to me. You see? You want me to fuss at you. I have to fuss at you. Do your meditation, do your meditation. Now you know you should do your meditation, but you're so irresponsible that I have to fuss at you. Send your reports in. You're so irresponsible you can't even do that. You see, you're like that teenager that we all dread, right? Well, you just got to whoop them, threaten them. I mean, why? They know they should keep their room neat and clean. They know they should be in before 12 o'clock. It's not like they don't know these things. But that teenager will never obey me. It doesn't go with being a teenager. They are rebellious. They think they know more than the mama or the daddy. And so it becomes a difficult period. Eventually you will become mature. Eventually. You will become responsible. No one has to tell you to do your meditation. No one has to argue with you. Self-discipline becomes natural. You become capable of it. Those of you who have said, oh, well, Mom, my problem is self-discipline, that is simply because you are still adolescent in your relationship to the Lord. That is all. Don't take it personal. Please, I'm not meaning it to be personal, but you must understand. You are simply adolescent. Hence the need and problem you're having with discipline. You have to be made to do something. Threatened, moved, goaded, coerced. Carrots has to be dangerous. You have to be rewarded of some sort. You see, you do not have the maturity of a full disciple yet.
Bhagwan, if you had given them like a list of 25 things,
Mhm.
1 to 25, and death was one of the items to select as your major problem, it would have been 25th on my list. And, I confess, in all honesty, even here, I'm working this.
You work in this
I was
place?
around death all the time.
All the time.
We are taught since we're old enough to understand speech that, death and later on we learn taxes are certain. It's something that you cannot avoid. So something that you cannot avoid, it's hard to see how that could be your major problem. I might say to myself, knowing that I'm going to die, how can I capture the essence of the remaining time, and that it could come any time.
Yes.
What can I do? What strategy? What can I do to turn my life into something fulfilling?
Yes.
Okay? To find myself, to get out of this prison, which is the Maya.
Yes.
So mine becomes not so much death, but what do you do right here?
You see, that is the problem. That is what we all do. We are trying to find some kind of way to make consolation, what I call pleasurizing. How to make myself feel better during the intern. That is simply more involvement in click-clack. You see my point? Because no matter what you do, you haven't changed the reality. Death. And so the fact that you're going to die, what is the point? You must find a way to live that deals with this point. You must resolve the problem that is there. The mystics have said it metaphorically in the form, you must die while living. You must actually solve this problem of death while you are alive and not become endlessly involved in the click-clack of it all and how to make that pleasurable. And what we find, Brother Ray, as you so accurately pointed out, even when we get involved in the click-clack with purposes of making consolation, nothing that we do ultimately consoles us except momentary and temporary. It becomes so conditional. It is made out of stuff that is impermanent. You see? You have not in any way avoided the reality that is death. That's the context in which all of this drama is occurring. So we must therefore be involved, no doubt. You have no option. You are in existence. What can you do about it? But you must come into right relationship with it. Maharaji used to always use an example. He says that you must become like that bee, that wise bee. He says that bee that sits on the edge of the bowl, right, can dip into it and enjoy it. But that bee that jumps into it, wings soon become stuck and they simply perish in the honey. The honey is no longer a pleasurable experience for them because they have become so immersed in it. All mystics have said over and over again, be in this world, but not of it. You must come to understand what is they trying to tell us? What is that life? What is living in this world and not being in this life? How do you do that? You cannot avoid the advice and say, well, I'm just going to jump in this world. No. The advice is be in the world, but not of it. How do you do that? What I am saying, that is a process. I have called it sadhana, spirituality, spiritual discipline. It is only through this moment-to-moment, ceaseless sadhana that one can truly be in this world in a way that you can make maximum use of it. In fact, that you can even enjoy it. You cannot enjoy anything in your attached state because you're so always overwhelmed with fear. That's what Emma was saying. The condition of attachment is one of fear because you are always fearful something is about to change. And this terrifies you. And you know it's about to change. And so you live under kind of anxiety. Yes, you can find ways to anesthetize the anxiety of it all. Is that right? Certainly. But the anxiety is still there. And the anxiety is arising from a deeper realization that this might change any moment. Now you get a little money. Now you're full of anxiety because you don't know what happens if the stocks that make up your portfolio crashes. Now, you don't need losing things. You find the right man or right woman, but then you worry because suppose they see somebody else they like more and then they leave you. Right? Now there comes the anxiety. You have children, but then there's an anxiety that goes with it. What if they get killed? What if somebody rapes them? What if some tragedy befalls them, etc., etc., etc. And so you must find ways and means, therefore, to resort to control yourself of all these anxieties. I guess, Brother Ray, the argument is that no matter what you do, you cannot avoid it. Death is not something you can avoid. You see? Even if you want to forget about it, you can't. It's there, lurking in the background. It's not one of those things where we have an option. I have always said many times, you don't have an option about death. It's not optional. It is the case. And you must resolve the problem, therefore, that death introduces into life. Are you all following me?
Yeah.
You must truly resolve it. Your ability to resolve that, or your lack of ability to resolve it, will dictate the quality of your life. Really. What is the point? What is the point? Yes or no?
I have a question. A lot of times, I tell myself I know I'm gonna die, but I mean, it's so far removed from me. It's something projected out of me. The realization of it is not intense because, to me, I don't know when I'm gonna die, so I'm not so focused on it.
Yes.
And as you talk more and more about the impermanence of things, that's becoming clearer and clearer to me. But personally, me going to die, I'm not getting any intensity.
Yeah, and you see, and that is what causes us to become involved in trivia, because that's one of the problems. There's nothing you can know about this death. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know under what circumstances it will arrive. You really don't know. All you know is that it's going to happen. But that's not good enough. You can't narrow it down. And that inability to narrow it down creates in us the feeling, well, hell, since I don't know when I'm going to die, I might as well live it up until it happens, you see. That is what triggers this sojourn into trivia, because we really don't know. But because you don't know, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's still going to happen. One of the great mystics, Emma, says that we have to live. Imagine if an assassin was after you. If you knew an assassin had a contract on you, right? When that calls you to behave and live a very different way, it is the same thing. Death is an assassin, spoken. There's an assassin on your tail. Now live according. Now live according. I'm trying.
Bhagwan, if with deep meditation, could we find out what's going on?
I love you, Bonita. Bonita never gives up. She never gives up. That's right. Actually, what happens, you see, Bonita, in deep meditation, you actually die. And so you overcome all of that fear. You see, you have resolved the problem. Truly. And that's why the mystics said, die while living. Die while living. You see. And that takes us into a whole other area of discussion on the nature of death, etc., etc. I visited all of that material already in the Bhagwan series. The point I'm making today is that you must consider this thing, even beyond the degree of discussion that we've had in the Bhagwan workshops. That was just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. But you must really consider this. You're right, Emma, because we don't know when we will die, right? It tends to make us very irresponsible in life. It causes us to misspend our time. It creates the illusion of time. You know yourself, because Maharaji has always talked to us about call. It's been the biggest obstacle on the path. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Sanskrit, kal simply means this illusion of time. Kal is the illusion of time. You all feel you have more time. K-A-L, kal. Maya is this feeling that you got time. That boy that I mentioned of my friend that got shot in the head last night, just a nanosecond before the bullet splattered his brain, he still was under the feeling he had time. Just like you are now. That is Maya. You are under the spell of Maya. If you understand this rightly, then it creates urgency. It doesn't make you relaxed. You see? When you are relaxed and relieved and no longer concerned about death simply because you don't know when it will happen, you have not really considered that rightly. When you consider it rightly, it creates an urgency in you. Not to waste time. Every moment becomes precious now. You see? It roots you in the deep process that is life. Right? Not the opposite. Yes, Brother Tom?
But isn't that fear back? Is that urgency?
It's not even fear so much, it's realization. Fear is something that you can conquer. Basically. Right? This is just dealing with reality. This is a response to reality. Right? What you're experiencing physiologically, that energy level, might be associated with fear. Because fear triggers energy in the psychophysical system, right? Fear of something happening to you is accompanied by all kinds of responses in the body-mind. Obviously, it becomes empowered, full of energy, to ward off its perception of a threat, right? It's just that in many instances, it's just that, your perception. It's not rooted in it. But this dealing with the inevitability and the unknowingness of your death truly brings you to a great state of alertness. You become very alert.
It's so interesting. I'm going to still go back to my experience here in the funeral home, where hardly a funeral that I attend, the minister doesn't mind us mentioning that, this is death, your misery is over, no bills to pay, no worries.
Yes.
And the picture painted is that death, and I think many of us kind of accept that maybe at some deep level, that actually that is the end of your misery. This is the time when...
Yes. And it's actually a big disservice that our culture has done to us, because we have been propagandized about it all in a way that is totally removed from the reality of it. You see? And in other cultures that are not so much in deep denial about that, because our culture, as you know, Ray, being in the business, is a total denial about that. We hide people away in the cemeteries on the edge. I mean, it's almost an ordinance in every town and city. You must move this cemetery to the edge, get it the hell out of the way so people are not confronted with this thing. We hide our old people, so forth, so on.
And our success here is dependent upon making them look as though they're still alive.
Make them look like they're still alive, to make it look like death has really not happened, you see? And then we have conventional religion to help you. You know, it creates a whole set of mythology to support that. It's all aimed at, you see, somehow protecting you from it. In spite of all of that, ability to cosmetize it, death still happens. See, that's the thing. No matter what you do, no matter how you play with it, no matter how you dress it up, rationalize it, it doesn't change the fact. The fact still remains, doesn't it? Spirituality is a response to this fact. And you must really, therefore, enter into a deep consideration. You must really look at your life and your living and see how much of it is simply going on as a way of avoiding this reality. you're not seeing it. And until you actually see the click-clack nature of it all, you will cling to it. That clinging to it will involve you to such a degree that you will have no energy and attention available for spiritual practice. Sorry. You cannot move to the depth because all your energies is involved in the click-clack. Are you following my argument?
Yes.
It is an argument that I am essentially making to people who are trying to live a spiritual way of life, who are trying to involve themselves in some kind of spiritual discipline. For those who are not particularly interested in living a spiritual life or a spiritual discipline, then this argument is irrelevant to them. It makes no sense to them. What is the point of it all? They have already, you see, bought into the Maya. All right. You see. They're living their worldly life, so to speak, to the hill. You see, they are into the click-clack. You see. Of course, nothing will change for them, but that's their business. For those of you who are considering a spiritual way of life and the spiritual practice that goes with it, you must see this. Because your ability to truly be involved in any authentic spiritual practice in sadhana depends on your ability to see this. Not seeing it, you will not break your involvement in the pleasurizing of click-clack to a degree adequate to free up any energy for the practice of sadhana. You will not do it. You cannot do it. Because your presumption is that your click-clack is important. Or your presumption is that you can find a way to make your click-clack pleasurable. What can I do? I call you on many occasions, examine your strategies that you are involved in for purposes of making your click-clack tolerable. Look at it. It really doesn't reduce the suffering in any way that is more than temporary. But you are clinging, therefore, to the illusion that you can find a way to make yourself happy out of that which cannot, by definition, produce it. So what you are doing, you are simply living in a world of ideologies. You are psychotic. You're not happy. You're pretending to be happy. And please enjoy the distinction. You see, you pretend to be happy. You see, but you're really not happy. And as long as you cannot distinguish between the two, what can happen? Yes, Tadavati?
Yeah, I was just going to add, Bhagwan, since you pointed out the right view of reality, just a short time I've noticed it's acted as like a magnet to withdraw that energy out of the conscious awakening and dreaming world.
Yes.
And it occurred to me that that's the view that we should have on death, that death is right on your shoulder wherever you go and live your life. With that, not knowing the degree of comfort comes in the fact that you're ever preparing.
Yes, yes. In fact, Tadavati, Kabir Sahib says that you should live with this awareness of your death and dying, in the death and dying of everything you connected with. This, Kabir Sahib says, is the foundation of living a spiritual life. You must maintain this awareness. You must maintain it. It is the only thing that will make you serious, that'll cause you to be in self-discipline. Your problem is that you're not serious and you are not in self-discipline, you see, because of the absence of this. You see? You cannot come into self-discipline. You will not come into it. You're not even moved to come into it. There's nothing to motivate you, right? At all for the spiritual life. You are simply involved in click-clack. That's all. And you calling that click-clack, you glorified it, made it noble sounding, even profound. You see? It is click clack. That is all. No big deal. No big deal. And it will come to an end. But until you are able to break all sympathy that you have to it, then you cannot really enter into the spiritual life. And that's your problem. You are sympathetic to it, attached. So sympathetic to it. Glorify it. Clean. Elevating it like it's some high thing. It's not high. It's click clack. Yes, Brother Ray?
That's what's so paradoxical about it all, but it seems like that's the dilemma, and that is that we maybe bought the idea that there is a possibility of truly living a fulfilled existence, one with no presence of misery.
Right.
And I've talked to these people in this room. We think we're serious. We struggle in attempts to do as you say, to understand what you say. And it's hard. It happens all the time. You think you're there?
Yeah.
Then you come in one study ready to tell everybody how much you know, and you're wrong again, you know. And you bust it and you start all over.
We start all over.
It goes, it's like that. It's this period of turmoil.
Yes.
As we're struggling to respond to many behaviors, the
Yes.
determinants which appear to be at the unconscious level even.
Yes, absolutely.
You have the desire, you set the goal,
Yes.
and yet you find that what you thought was there was not.
Yes. You see, Ray, the condition is that we are disconnected. Normally, you see, until you have evolved spiritually, there's a deep disconnection in your being. On the one hand, your intelligence understands things, right? But that intelligence is not connected to a will that can bring those things into being to actually result in change, right, in your life. We have not understood to the point that we are able to change, to be transformed. And that is the problem, but that is the ordeal. You have to just go through it until you grow. There's evolution going on here, you see. You have to evolve, you see, to a point where you are capable of living the spiritual life. That is a process to all of that. It's not just a matter of selecting a kind of philosophical point of view, and then that is enough to transform you. No, there's a whole business about energy and everything that is involved in that transformation. So you're absolutely right. And the start of the whole process is in right understanding. As long as you see, Brother Ray, that we have the presumption that we can fulfill ourselves in this state of click-clack, as long as we have that presumption, we remain a victim. You see? You must really examine the very presumption that you have, that somehow you can live a fulfilling life until you are dead. And that is your presumption. And I'm telling you, as all saints and sages have been telling you, that is a false presumption. You have presumed something that is not even possible. And the argument is not going to be made at the level of philosophy and debate. The argument is that I present to you, go look at your life. See if that presumption is right. This dispenses with all intellectual arguments, all philosophizing about it. You need not resort to it. I'm not going to give you any verse to read in the Bhagwan Gita or the Bible to defend this position. I call you to look at your life based on that presumption. Now, you're under the presumption, yes, Bhagwan, I know there's death, but I will be able to live my life in such a way that I will be fulfilled to that moment. Not so. Absolutely not. It is a false presumption that is based on illusion. You have not even looked at your life. You will not look at it. Because to look at it now means you will have to stop all of this nonsense, mischief that you're making with your concepts. You will have to really look at that which is really the case. You will have to stop hiding in all manner of things and really look at it. It is a false perception. You cannot and have not been able to achieve any kind of pleasure or happiness that has been anything more than temporary and minimal. That is a fact. And it has nothing to do with your inability to construct good strategies. The claim is made simply because everything that you are making strategy with is impermanent by definition. Is that right, Barataji?
Yes.
We had that argument.
Yes, we did.
You see, anyone that doubts the argument, okay, you argue with Barataji. I've argued with him. That's enough. I argue with one person, let him argue with the rest of you. You see, he has tried to find some exception to that. Were you able to? You could not find it.
There is no exception.
There is no exception. Your strategy is made out of stuff that is unstable and impermanent. Therefore, it, by definition, can never deliver more than a temporary effect of pleasure. See that. See that. You are attempting the impossible. Can't happen. Can't happen. It is simply a way of you justifying your involvement in click-clack. But it's click-clack. That is all. And you must therefore really deal with that. You see, beloved, nobody wants to give up their ego. Now this really becomes the problem. You don't want to sacrifice it. You'll sacrifice 1,001 other things, all kinds of time, money, saving, good deeds. But it's the thing that must be sacrificed, you don't want to sacrifice it, which is your ego. You do not want to change. Bottom line. You simply do not want to change. That inertia, Satrani, that you talked about. It was horrifying to discover that about yourself once a kid. Must have took much courage even just to come here today and confess it. That you really confronted the reality that you just really don't want to change. And you create all this other bullshit to make it appear that you really want to change, but I don't know how to change, but what? No. You don't want to change. You don't want to give up that ego and condition. Pure and simple. And that's what it is. And you must do it. Yes, sister?
Can you give an example of detachment as opposed to attachment? The mental, emotional stance, behavioral stance?
You want a whole
Just
workshop?
explicit.
Yes.
Example of what
Well,
detachment is.
I don't think I could do it in the course of the time that I have to respond to your question. There must be some video somewhere, some workshop. Satra, did we do some workshop on attachment somewhere?
Oh,
You
yeah.
got that? Would somebody take it upon themselves to share that with sister, and then you can watch that, and then whatever question you have left over, then we can discuss it. Because this is a big topic. The argument I'm making today is essentially that detachment is the right relationship to reality. Detachment being this overcoming this tendency to cling, to try to hold on to anything.
But it's not isolation.
No, it's not isolation.
So, yeah.
It's not renunciation. It's not avoidance, you see. It's not asceticism. It's not becoming a recluse. That's not possible. And it's not only to the things in the outer world, even the things of the inner world, your moods, your feelings, and all of the activity that goes on in you subjectively is also to be entered into in a detached way. Because nothing is permanent, neither anything outside or inside. Now your mood that you're in. And you come into a mood of feeling good arising in you. Then you try to cling to it and hold it. You see? That's not possible. You see? That mood will come, it will have a duration, and then it will disappear. And in the next instance, you will be sad or feeling bad or whatever comes next. You see, you will move from anger, lust, greed, attachment. I've gone into all of these things in great detail. This is part of click clack. So there's outer click clack and there's inner click clack, but it is all click clack. Never disrespect.
I
You see,
understand
you
that,
follow
because
that,
that's what
right?
I look at.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
the opposing detachment, that's
Yeah.
what I look at.
Yes, you'll get it. And I think you already intuitively understand it. You just want to stand it on rational grounds now. But I think intuitively you already grasped it. Right? That is just the nature of things. That's just how things are. You see. And actually it's really interesting because it's only out of that state that you really can enjoy. You really can enjoy life. Only in a state of detachment. There is no other way to enjoy life. You see. The attached state of relationship to life is characterized by suffering, sorrow, misery, anxiety, fear, etc., etc., etc. Because you're attempting something that is fundamentally impossible. It cannot happen. That which you love is bound to go. Or you're going to go, one or the other. But separation is guaranteed, you see. That's just how things are. And nothing's wrong with it. It's beautiful in its own way. It makes for a great experience. Yes, Dr. Knight.
Bhagwan, what I was going to say, and I don't know if this will clear it up for her or not, but when I've taken care, that I've taken care of many of my members of my family and friends in the time of their death. And I've watched some of them cling to life, and as a result were unhappy in their last days and had behavior that just was sometimes even irrational. On the other hand, I've watched a couple of my family members, my mother in particular, and I'm thinking about this because I remember always thinking that in her last few days how very peaceful and free she seemed to me. And I thought for a long time that the reason why I had, that we had cleaned up a lot of stuff, and that's why. But what I realized is that my mother had really become detached from the experience of life, of being here, and that's why she could experience this freedom in her last days. So I don't know, but that for me is, and when I watch people die and been with them in their last moments, the difference in how they've experienced that has been, I think, detachment and attachment.
Of course, if you lived a very attached life, then naturally, when you enter into the bardo of death and dying, it becomes even more problematic. It becomes very traumatic because there's been no preparation for it. That's the whole point. You've made no preparation for this event. And you have to understand that death is not something that is just going to happen later down the road. It is happening continuously. Something is always dying around you. You see? Something is always dying inside of you, but you're not really aware at the microcosmic level. You don't understand that cells are just dying continuously, even as we've talked, right? So this process is going on all the time. But what is important that you do, you see, is that you must really look at another level of this thing here. Because even these kind of lesser considerations don't move you toward anything. Right? It just becomes so much more intellectual information. And that is not the purpose of the consideration. I truly want you to consider the fact that you are living a life at the level of click clack, and it's really not that important. Not dealing with that. Not dealing with that. And that in spite of all of your attempts otherwise, everything is going to come to an end. What is the point? Now, what is the point of it all? You see? And particularly for those of you who have come onto the spiritual path, try to understand how would you make available any energy for the practice of sadhana as long as you are under this presumption. How that's going to happen? You must overcome this thing in yourself. You must see it and be liberated. You must truly do that. You must lose all sympathy with it. If you ever go to a retreat or an ashram somewhere, if you have that opportunity, you will go into that environment and you will find that many of the bhikkhus or monks or sannyasins or disciples are inside of that community. They're working, they're building houses, digging wells, but you will notice a quality about everybody in there is that they are really involved in a much deeper process than drawing water. You see, there's something very meditative about it. It is as if they're involved in all of these other necessary activities, but at the same time they are not totally involved. A part of them is connected to a much deeper process. You follow me? That deeper process is the God realization process. They stay connected to their God realization process and activity. They never lose that connection. But I am saying is that you abandon the connection, you abandon the activity at the drop of a dime. Now that's the truth. You abandon it. And you abandon it because you're on the presumption that something else is more important. And I'm telling you, there is nothing more important than this deep process that is silent that is going on. There is nothing more important than that. All of your problems as it pertains to following the path is rooted in your carrying some presumption about something else being more important. I know it. I hear you. You're constantly arguing with me that your family and your children and your job and your this is more important. Some of you in your report demonstrate that over and over again. And I need you to see that and stop glorifying it. Stop making light of it. You know, I couldn't do my meditation because my refrigerator broke down. That shit is not that important enough to miss your meditation. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
I mean, really, seriously now. I want to be serious with you now. Do you understand me?
Yes.
How in the world is your refrigerator breaking down so important that you miss your meditation? What's so important about it? That it warrants you abandoning the most profound practice. What's so important about it? Now really, what's so important about it? Nothing. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And that is all. And you have elevated click, clack to a state that's more important than your spiritual practice. Now this has got to stop. Now I'm tired of that kind of childishness. You must come into some kind of mature relationship with this thing now. You see? Bhagwan, I couldn't do my meditation because I was so involved in reading and studying what this great person said. How is that more important than your meditation? How now? How? Now really, how is that more important now? Somebody please make me understand. Give me your argument. Come on with it. How do you justify missing your meditation?
Well,
On what basis? What is so important that you can't do any meditation?
I'm traumatized by seeing myself more for what I really am. And it unshakes your foundation. You're in a state of tension, chaos, nervousness. It's hard to think straight.
It's hard to think straight. But Ray, you see, this is what we must come through is this crisis. You must lose all your fascination with this stuff. Truly, now please try to understand me, because it is no point in what you are doing. It is click-clack. It is ending. It's not going nowhere. It doesn't change anything. You fix the refrigerator, you fix the roof, the house is going to perish. And everything in it is going to perish. You are going to perish. It is click, clack. Why can't you see that? And even if you must be involved in these kind of necessary things, can't you bring your meditation with you? Must you abandon it to the point of forgetfulness? Fix the refrigerator. Keep your practice going at some level. The practice is more than sitting in the corner for a few hours. We have a very fluid and dynamic practice, don't we? There's always a possibility to be involved in the great God realization process under all conditions, circumstances. As you tinkering with the refrigerator, keep your simmering going. What is so hard? What is so hard about that? but you make it so important that, well, this stuff is so important. I can't run the risk of messing this up by doing that damn Simran. Look at you. Look at you. What is that? Now, you must deal with this thing. Now, you must really, truly deal with this thing. This is click-clack, people. It's not that important. In any case, you're still going to die. It's going to die. It's going to. Now, this is so. And if you don't believe me, then you know the rest. Now, this is. Anything else to say about it?
I understand Bhagwan that there is no possibility of living 100% fully there. So if they people practicing Dharma 100%, because there will be a presumption. And
No.
not to the point of doubt.
If someone is protesting here.
That's not what he
I
said.
heard rumblings in the front row.
That's not what he said.
That's not what I said. You see, Bharataji, you will correct it, I suppose.
Okay.
But the point is that certainly that the presumption that you can live a fulfilling life, a happy life, and anything other than being involved in this deep Dharma and this deep process is an illusion. It is the very illusion that you must give up.
Okay.
You see
So
my
what I
point?
understand is if we're practicing Dharma forward, then a greater peace and managing Maya should exist.
You would transcend all of this stuff. You see, a transcendence concept. But the thing is, as you say, Teresa, is that we must be practicing. Not talking about it. Not philosophizing about it. Not planning on practicing. But truly, truly living. We must truly, truly live. We must enter into the ego transcendence process that is solid. We must transcend this thing. We really must transcend it. But our whole problem, Teresa, is obviously, as you know and I know, is that we got to get into this right view about it all and come into right relationship. I'm really not saying anything profound here. I mean, this is all quite obvious to me. Is it obvious to you? Is death obvious to you? Do you really see how things are changing? Do you really see that? Every second. Do you really see that? And I'm simply saying, seeing it, just come into right relationship. Yes, James Simon?
Yes. When you was just saying that, isn't it obvious how things are just constantly shifting and changing? I was just thinking in that instance, why can't I see the beauty in the shifting and changing? Why do I got to make it so grotesque?
Yes. You should see beauty in it. That's what I'm saying. When you could come into right relationship, you can see it. Because you're not trying to exploit it. There's no need. You are already abiding in a state prior to the changes themselves, which is always already happening, by definition. You see. But this is a realization that has to happen. You can't see it, James saw, because there's no realization in you. Clearly the problem. You ask Bhagwan, why can't I see it? Because you are still ignorant. You are unenlightened. You have not involved yourself in anything to transform. And you see, until you do that, then you will simply not be able to see this thing. So my whole argument is aimed to really motivate all of you to really truly enter into the process that gives the realization. This is not a realization that you can engineer from the outside, from your armchair, through books, through debate, through philosophy. You must enter radically into the discipline that is offered. You must evolve to the point where you can have that realization. I'm talking human evolution. All right? This is evolution going on. It is as dramatic as growing new legs and new arms. It is truly that. So it all begins here. I argue today for the benefit of those who are practicing the path, those who are on the path. I argue today for the benefit of those who contemplate coming on the path, so that you will be spared any unnecessary waste of time, that you will not get caught up in the quagmire of just armchair philosophy and talk mysticism. That will not serve you, you see. I want you to actually see this thing exactly the way it is. Maharaj used to always tell us is that your meditation is the most important thing. Never sacrifice it for anything of the world. Many of us thought and confined Maharaji advice to just our formal meditation and was well served even by that. But what Maharaji meant is that this is the case always. Your meditation never should be sacrificed under any condition to the things in this world. Meaning that you should always be abiding in some aspect of the great process. Right? That you should never set it down, right, to involve yourself totally in click-clack. You see? Do click-clack, but be rooted in your meditation. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm arguing. You see? You have no option. Click-clack is the experience, but be rooted in this sadhana. You see? Don't abandon your sadhana and become exclusively involved in the click-clack of it all, thinking that that has some ultimate significance and importance. It does not. It will end. Care what you do. It doesn't stop anything. Death will happen. Change will happen. Care what you do. Now this is true. Yes, I can.
Bhagwan, I think that there is a certain level of hope and a glimpse of the happiness is to come through the process that we're going through. We see the things that we're not yet, and we also see where we're at. We're finding out more and more where we're at. And in that process, there's a glimmer of happiness that comes up. Each time you find something new, you see another part that you can work on and fix. Then there's a glimpse of happiness as to what's to come. That's
Yes, you're motivated. You're set, all of these things. Maharaji Sadhguru used to always say that if you are truly practicing this way, this dharma, this path, that you will become more and more happy to the point where you are continuously happy. And that is true. Because you're moving toward the source that is happiness. It's like if you can imagine on a cold day and there's a heater in this court. Naturally, as we will move closer to the heat, we will become warmer than by simply remaining on the peripherals. I try in the same way as we enter into the self and God realization process, we are always coming closer and closer to our original condition and place where we are. And in that coming closer, the experience of bliss goes on increasing. Unconditionally. Not like what you're experiencing otherwise, which is all conditional. Now you're happy, but you happy there's a because to it. You happy because I got a job, I got a wife, I got a husband, I don't have no bills, I got good health. Your happiness is all conditional. And any happiness that is conditional is temporary because the very conditions that it is rooted in is conditional. You follow my point? Temporary. That is not the same kind of bliss that these mystics are talking about. As you move closer to your source, your experience of happiness becomes less and less conditional. You see, that is what you notice first of all. You see, less and less conditional until it becomes totally unconditional when you have arrived. You see. The thing that one has to begin to see is that what you have now is fool's gold. It's not the real deal. How do you know it? Simply imagine not having any of the things now that is the basis of your conditional satisfaction. Right? You are, actually, you're not even happy. You are in a state of consolation. You are calling this state of consolation happiness. That ain't happiness. You are simply consoled at this point. Functional. You're consoled. You and remove all of those conditions. Remove the wife, remove the business, remove the money, remove the good health. Will you still be standing in a condition of happiness? No. In fact, just the thought of them being removed. You don't even want to think about it. Bhagwan, I don't want to talk about that. You see, just the ideal, just the thought of them not being there is enough to disturb your little so-called happiness. Makes you sad. Yes, Salami?
Just sitting here now, I definitely came to a realization that I have been meditating.
Yes, yes. Thank you for the confession.
This is absolute truth. I have been doing it my way, and I know you have asked for us to meditate at least 2.5 hours. So throughout my blessing throughout my whole day and every day doing this and that, I have not given it the priority that I should.
Right. Right. Now don't feel bad. Of course, you're not to be condemned. You're just being honest about it. You're sinning. That is true. Almost every one of you have done the same thing. Some of you are still involved in it. You are doing it your way. And you must give up your older custom. You don't want to change tonight. Because the sadhana that I give you definitely causes you to change. And you don't want to do it. Now, you got to make a holy time during your day. A holy time where you are not sacrificing it to anything. That you're using it for those purposes. Right? You must be punctual. You must be regular. You must be consistent. I have called you into a moral change to come into a different relationship, even in your human relationships, with food, so many things. But always stuff that calls you to change. And you really don't want to change. That is the gravity of your ego. You really don't want to change. And then you pretend that change is coming, but as soon as I learn a little bit more. I haven't heard enough of the teachings. You've heard enough. Teachings are simple. You just don't want to change. You don't want to give it up. You are compulsively in relationship with this ego and this strategy. You are obsessed about it all. You're in a pathological relationship with it. You see, you don't want to change. You don't want to change. And you invent all kinds of bullshit. I don't listen to that. So it's bullshit. I know bullshit when I see it. You understand? You just don't want to change. You must change. You must evolve. You must grow. That's what this is about. So you're confessing. Good. That is a sign of growth. Be happy. You've moved to a higher level now of truthfulness, even with yourself. Acha, Salami, this is good. This is a cause for celebration. We can't kill a fatted cow, but we'll cook a few vegetables. You said have them upstairs for you. But what you have confessed is all of our confession, my dear.
Yeah.
Now that's the truth.
Yeah.
So don't feel that you are somehow in some kind of aberration of it all. No, you're not. This is everybody's confession. You see, we really don't want to change. We really do not wish to bring our life and living in harmony with the teachings. We really don't want to do that. Now you say, oh, but when I'm trying so hard on the path, but you're not doing no meditation. Do you understand me? You're not doing no meditation. If you're trying so hard on this path, show me the meditation. What is that? But one, I'm struggling on the path, I'm trying so hard, and then you give me 15 minutes a week. What is this? Now what is that? Now really, what is that? Oh, I love the path, I'm really trying on the teaching, but you meditate 20 minutes a day if you meditate at all. What is that? Now I want you to look at that. And when you do meditate, you don't put none of your time and attention into the mantra. You spend all your time revisiting all the nonsense that you were involved with the prior day or in the beginning of the day. Why are you doing that to me? What have I done to you? Really? I didn't do anything to you. What is that? There's no cause for that. You see? There's no cause for that. You must really confront that. That is why this device that is meditation is right there. You can't get around it. If you're so serious about the path, why don't you meditate? That's the bottom line. And you must deal with that. I am not taken in by any of this cleverness here. All of these beautiful arguments, all of your confessions of dedication to the path, gratitude for hearing and teaching. Beloved, I am not taken in by any of it. I see right through it. I may not confront you about it. I'm polite. And so are others here in the room that have seen through it. It is interesting. You see? Sometimes we have our private satsang and you go into your considerations and you begin to see all this stuff about yourself. And you say like Salami, Bhagwan, I just had a revelation. But Salami, everybody knew that about you. Except you. They knew it all the time. You just didn't know. You see? That's the beauty of satsang. Here we can pull the covers off each other. And it's all right, isn't it? Because we're all struggling, isn't it? Right? It's all right. You can get naked here. Right? As you'd like to put it, right? It's all right. You see? Ain't nothing to hide here. We're all trying to really achieve the same. So I love this confession of yours. That you haven't really done it. Maharaj used to always say that sometime after 30 years, this could have went on 30 years, I mean, be happy about it. Maharaj used to always respond to all kinds of remarks made by those whom he had initiated, sometime even after 30 years of being on the path. And they would write Maharaji long letters complaining, Maharaji, I've been on the path for 30 years, I've been initiated, you know, and I haven't made 1 ounce of progress. This path, what is it going, what's up with this, etc., etc. And Maharaji would simply ask them, brothers or sister, have you really practiced? And then you discover that for 30 years, you never really truly practiced according to the way you were instructed. You never did the full amount of meditation. You never achieved regularity and punctuality. You started eating all your meat and pork chops all over again. And I mean, all kinds of things. You never made any moral changes. And yet now you stand before the master and you protest Maharaji. You see, why aren't I making any progress? Well, the answer's in your life. Look. So it could have went on a long time, Salam. You caught it. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now you ready. Let's go to work. You see? Anything else? Last question. Bhakti Maji, you were, huh?
I just wanted to say that over the last couple of weeks when I've been discussing with Rajaji different things that I was struggling with, you just simply say, well, you don't want to die. Which
that's right. You don't want to die.
You don't want to die. You know. So I mean, the struggle is understandable because you don't want to die.
That's what the whole struggle is about. We're clinging, and so today I wanted you to really begin to consider all of these things and to begin to develop the right relationship with the click-clack of it all. All right. And I'm not trying to tell you avoid your click-clack. How will you avoid it? It's not even necessary. Simply be in right relationship. Get in right relationship with your wife and your children and your job and your businesses and all these other things. Get into right relationship with all of them. You see? Don't be involved in them to the extent that you are not capable of practicing this sadhana and your spiritual practices that arises with it. You see? If you are involved to that extent, then you're in wrong relationship with it all. You're laboring under a very wrong presumption. Right? And until you break that presumption, you will simply live a life of click-clack. That is all. So, yes, Barata Ji, one last thing from Barata.
You've already told us, Bhagwan, so many times that do your click-clack, but there is Dharma in everything that we do. If we just
Look for it and accept it. Yes. Be in the click-clack, but don't let the click-clack be in you. So, be in your Dharma under all conditions. There's an opportunity for Dharma.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Always.
It's always. You see, you can chop wood and carry water and still be in the Dharma. You can make love to your husband and your wife, be a father or a mother, be all of the roles that you are and still abide in your Dharma. That is possible. That should and must become the case. You see? Truly. But what you must stop doing is sacrificing your Dharma for click-clack. And that's what you all are doing. You give up the Dharma, thinking that the click-clack is so important, so overwhelmingly important, that it justifies interrupting the process that is God and self-realization. And this must be over. This you must see. This you must consider. We have Prashad.